Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. Hopefully everybody's having a good Friday. We've got actually a pretty good number of things today to talk about. We're actually going to be jumping into quite a number of UEFI BIOS updates. So actually I think this is our first BIOS announcement, UEFI BIOS announcement for 2024. So we'll be touching actually on some updates relating to the latest generation Ryzen 8000G series processors for our AM5 series based motherboards, high density DDR5 memory support, USB 4 add-in card interoperability and compatibility. So we've got that. We've also got some really cool new product announcements that we'll be touching on. So a little bit of information for the upcoming ROG Swift OLED PG32UCDM, which I know has been very hotly anticipated by a lot of you in the community. Some updates in terms of our new Noctua series based graphics card, which is now seeing a refresh for the 4080 Super, an update to our Super series refresh as well under the ProArt series card. We've got two new motherboards that we'll touch on quickly, one Prime model as well as one tough gaming model, and actually maybe my personal favorite for the whole show, which actually might be the brand new NUC 14 series of products, which actually are featuring the latest generation Intel Meteor Lake based processors, and some really cool new kind of revisions to the actual hardware design, the feature set, and the functionality and the performance. As you guys know, I'm always a big fan of mini PCs, so we'll touch on that along with a few other things, and we'll kick things off. So as always, if you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the comment in the chat, and we'll go ahead and do our best to go ahead and highlight them as we go through the stream. So let's see who we have joining us today. We've got the one, the only, one of the best modders and builders in the game. We've got Snef joining us all the way over from Canada, man. Fantastic. Happy to have you here. Chair for JJ. Hopefully I'm going to get that SL400 in here in the not too distant future and take care of this old chair that I've got right here, but we'll see how that comes along in a little bit. Actually, a Facebook user actually notes one of the new boards here that we're going to talk about, the Tough Gaming B760M Plus Wi-Fi 2. I think that's actually going to be a great option for those that are looking for a solid, stable, reliable board, good set of features, but definitely don't want to break the bank in terms of their price point. Erica's joining us. Fantastic. Always great to have you on the stream. Let us know that the audio is okay. The one, the only PGPC is one of the best members in our PCDIY community, which if you're not part of, make sure to go ahead and join it. We've got a link in the description. It's an amazing community of over 50,000 members that talk about all the latest and greatest from ASUS. Plus, you also have direct contact with myself as well as Lee, our community manager, to be able to get all the latest and greatest insights when it comes to new products, as well as feature, functions, and a whole lot more. So make sure to check out the ASUS PCDIY group. We've also got Scott A joining us here in the stream. We've got Douglas joining us as well. We've got Michael also joining us. And we've got, of course, the other Michael. He was letting us know they were past due a little bit as we were warming things up. So let's go ahead and get things kicked off. We're going to start off with UEFI BIOS updates. So let me go ahead and bring that up, guys. And I'm going to need to bring up actually my chart because there's actually quite a bit of them that we do need to touch on. So overall, as always, if you guys are not aware when it comes to the UEFI BIOS releases, make sure to go ahead and check out the post that we're going to have in the PCDIY group. We generally release this about every 7 to 10 days, and it will include essentially all of the updates that we've issued in about that last week period for our respective series of motherboards. Now, the vast majority of updates are usually going to be incremental. That means that it's not going to be a necessary update in terms of ensuring kind of stability or functionality. A lot of times it's either maybe adding in some type of security patch revision. It could be adding in a specific feature or function, or maybe enhancing interoperability and compatibility. So let's go ahead and touch on a couple of the key updates that we've got for this generation. And we'll go ahead and also, for this week, and we'll also call out a couple of specific models in relation to these updates. So let me go ahead and bring up one here. Give me 1 second. And where should we start off? I think we'll start off with quite a number of the Intel boards. So let me go ahead and bring that one up first. So let's bring up this board. So we'll bring up an ROG. I think this is going to be an ROG Strix. Yeah. It won't matter. This is going to pretty much be the vast majority of Socket 1700 series boards that we have there. But I'm going to go ahead and just bring up this ROG Strix B760 Wi-Fi board because I think it's a cool board, and sometimes the B series boards don't get actually as much as focus as, let's say, as the ATX Z series based chipset boards, right? So let's go ahead and take a look right here, and this is going to be for our USB 4 add-in card. All right, so always, if you're not aware, it's a pretty straightforward process to be able to access the UEFI BIOS updates. Just head over to the support tab for your motherboard. Once you head over to the support tab on the motherboard, you're going to head over to drivers. Once you head over to drivers, you're going to go to BIOS and firmware, and then from BIOS and firmware, you'll see that. So you'll actually see that we have a recent update that just came in on the 5th. And again, this is being rolled out to large number of our Socket 1700 series based motherboards is adding in the formalized support for the USB 4 PCI Gen 4 add-in card. So what is the whole point of that USB 4 add-in card? Well, the vast majority of motherboards, except for let's say our more premium high-end boards like the Maximus series or maybe like a ProArt series, are probably going to only have 5, 10, or 20 gigabit USB speed. Now, that's already quite good. I'd love to know what's your speed that you're running for an external device. Let us know in the comments there. The vast majority of users tend to usually have either USB 2 or maybe like a 5 gigabit device, something like a high-speed external SSD, but very few users tend to have 10 or even 20 gigabit based devices. But for those that are looking for the fastest level of performance, but all don't necessarily, of course, want to jump up to the most expensive the most expensive motherboard that features the highest speed I/O, a great option for you will be this actual add-in card. So this is our ASUS USB 4 PCI Gen 4 add-in card. So this will actually slot in on the motherboard. It does require UEFI based support, and it also requires actually a connection to the chipset to be able to actually offer timing. So that's the reason why there's actually a corresponding cable, a couple of other things that are baked in there. You can also have supplemental power. So you'll see right here, there's an auxiliary PCI power connector that supports up to 60 watts. So again, this is a pretty cool feature. One of the reasons why I want to show something like the B6C760 board is, of course, here, if we were to take this look at the rear I/O, this board actually does have up to 20 gigabits USB, which is already going to be very, very nice for the vast majority of users. 20 gigabits there, 5 gigabits, 10 gigabits, that's already quite good in terms of the overall I/O. But hey, if you wanted to even have better speed, faster speed, and you want to take advantage of USB 4, you can add that with our USB 4 add-in card. Just make sure to go ahead and download the corresponding update. So again, lots of models will be receiving this update to be able to enable the PCIe Gen 4 USB 4 add-in card. So also keep in mind, this is different than our Thunderbolt 4 add-in card, as though the specification kind of gets sometimes thrown about that they're the same. They're actually different in terms of kind of the base specifications in terms of assured bandwidth, and also the way the device initialization works between Thunderbolt and between USB. So we actually have a Thunderbolt 4 add-in card, and we also have a USB 4 add-in card. So two separate add-in cards. But generally, most of the boards that usually support one will support the other. So I will go ahead and drop that in the chat. And again, if you want to see the complete list of all the boards that do feature support for that add-in card, just make sure to go ahead and check out the PCDIY group in the featured post announcement. It should probably be going up later today. If not, it'll go up this weekend, guys. Okay, so let me go ahead and quickly see if we had any quick questions on that side. Scott A notes, I got the ASUS TUF Gaming Z790 Plus Wi-Fi D5 this year. Yeah, great board. I'm always a fan of our TUF Gaming series. I was really excited finally for Z790 that we did finally introduce the AIOC feature, which is something we hadn't offered in the TUF Gaming series. But that's a really solid board. I love its overall features, function spec, its layout. It's really solid foundation for you in terms of a gaming build. So Michael goes, question, any info on when Wi-Fi 7 will be working on the latest routers? So technically, actually, Wi-Fi 7 is already working, but there are still, of course, certain levels of validation in terms of formalized and finalized specification that will be coming in, right, from the Wi-Fi consortium. So as those things kind of get ratified and finalized and there's firmware updates that get issued, that'll come out. There's also kind of official drivers and the way that the operating system works. Technically, Microsoft doesn't have full integration for that. That'll be coming in a forthcoming build update for the Windows-based operating system. In the past, you actually had to be running beta versions of the actual Windows operating system to enable the full functionality. So it is very much dependent on a lot of different factors. Your client device, the driver that that device has. For some mobile devices like phones, take for instance, you may actually have to have special beta packages or over-the-air firmware updates to enable Wi-Fi 7 interoperability for that client device. But we'll actually be talking about that a little bit because ASUS very shortly will actually be launching its Wi-Fi 7 add-in card, and this is going to supplement, of course, already products that we have to the market, like our motherboards that also feature Wi-Fi 7. Okay. So Introvert Alert asks us a quick question before we get to the next UEFI BIOS update. Hey JJ, can I use a USB hub to connect multiple USB devices to one USB port on my Rapture, so ROG Rapture AXE 16000 routers? They're just one device per USB port. So that's a good question, and it gets a little bit tricky. Technically, you could use a hub, but because we actually have a specialized operating system that is compiled as part of the ASUS WRT firmware, it doesn't work in the traditional way that some devices want to initialize in. So I wouldn't recommend it. Also, the power output stability could be more variable for the device in question. So in most situations, we don't recommend this configuration be utilized. In theory, it can work, but I don't recommend it. Generally, you want to use it for one dedicated device. So whether that's going to be for like a USB external hard drive, and USB external SSD storage drive, you know, a multifunction printer scanner, something along those lines, I would just utilize one dedicated device to ensure stability and compatibility. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go over to our next UEFI BIOS update. And again, feel free to go ahead and drop those questions in the comment section there, guys, and I will take a look when I can. Okay, so that's going to be UEFI Gen 4, and like I said, overall, that's going to be for most of the motherboards that I'm seeing that update for were on the B760 side. There are also some on the HZ77 side, and then of course we had also released the updates prior to some additional other 1700 series motherboards. So again, you can check on your motherboard support side to see if you've received that update. All right, let's go ahead and go to another update, which I think is going to be pretty cool. This is going to probably be for a select series of users that are out there, and let us know right now in the chat, how much memory are you running in your system, and how much memory is too much? You know, for the vast majority of gamers that are out there, probably you only really need about 16 gigabytes for most real world situations. I think enthusiasts definitely are starting to kind of adopt in 32 gigabytes as kind of being that de facto standard. It gives you definitely way more than you need when it comes to general gaming, and gives you quite a bit of memory for general kind of desktop productivity, a lot of applications being actively open and running in the background and in the foreground. And very few, if any, real actually gamers or general desktop users need more than 32 gigabytes. So once you start to go into like the 48, the 64, 96 gigabyte configurations, 128, that really is, you're talking about probably about a more prosumer professional user, workstation type of user that has very, very heavy demands or very specific type of workflows. That being noted, one of the really cool things that DDR5 introduced was its ability to be able to go ahead and offer support for ultra high density memory configurations. So that means that those out there that want to be able to have not 128 gigabytes, but actually 256 gigabyte configurations are probably going to be pretty excited by this, because you are now being able to get support for that. So let's go ahead and bring up another model as an example of this. This is going to be actually a micro ATX board. This is going to be a cool little board that we have right here. This is the Prime Z790M Plus. Again, this is pretty much rolling out to the vast majority of the boards that we have within the 1700 series socket lineup. So we've already gone ahead and issued that update, and you'll continue to see more of this come out as more memory manufacturers on the market release these actually memory modules. So keep in mind that it's not just kind of a one and done type of update, but this is pretty much kind of laying the foundation for this type of support in place. So again, if we just head over to the support tab, we'll head over here and we'll head over to BIOS and firmware, and you can see that new update that came in on the 6th is support for high density memory kits up to 256 gigabytes of memory. That's pretty crazy that you can run 256 gigabytes on, you know, pretty much a mainstream based motherboard, right? Where years ago, that's just, it wasn't a realistic kind of configuration. So pretty cool to know that you can do that. As always, do keep in mind, and we've talked about this a lot when it comes to memory, if you want to find out more, check out the post that we have in our PCDIY group. Check out the actual live streams that we've done on the channel regarding DDR5 in terms of interoperability, compatibility, and DRAM scaling. But the long and short of it is, as you increase memory rank and as you increase density on your memory, your DRAM divider goes down. So you can't run essentially the same memory dividers with high density memory configurations in the same way that you can run much higher DRAM configurations with lower density. So the easiest way to think about it, if you're running like 16, 32, 48 gigabyte configurations, you'll be able to run much higher DRAM configurations, especially if you're only talking 2 DIMMs. The moment you the moment you move over to 4 DIMMs, that DRAM scaler is going to go down. And then also, not only when you go to 4 DIMMs, but you also add in dual rank memory, the DRAM scaling goes down as well. So always be mindful of that, is that while you're going to be able to increase your memory density, that's always going to come at the expense of frequency or DRAM scaling. Okay, so let's see what some feedback in the community was as far as what was the memory configurations that were most prevalent, right? So Michael said he was running 32 gigs. Our other Michael here said that he was running 64. Scott's running 32. Blueberry Dingo is running 32 as well. Love the picture of the dog. Wow. Keith is rocking 96 gigabytes. So Keith, why don't you let us know, what are you using 96 gigabytes worth of memory for? Okay. Then we've got Kendachi. He's running 48 gigabytes, and then he's running 96 gigabytes on his workstation. Definitely makes sense on a workstation. Maybe you're running multiple applications, virtualization, you know, things along those lines. So you might want more memory density as well, right? Hey, Tech505, happy for joining us here. Douglas is I don't think he's running 256. Maybe he's just saying he's surprised at being able to run 256 gigabytes worth of memory. So overall, pretty cool that we can do that. So let's just see one other quick feedback point that we have from Tech505. He's giving us some feedback. JJ, can we get maybe more USB 2 ports on some models? I find myself having to use a USB hub for my build, especially when I install AIOs. Yeah, that's actually something that we have been mindful of. We have actually put on some models a higher number of USB ports. Take, for instance, like our Dash E model has had like 3 internal USB 2 headers. It's kind of interesting because that was a spec that for a long time it started to actually get shifted away, but then as you saw more and more people utilizing things like AIOs, screens on AIOs, custom ARGB controllers from kind of closed ecosystems like Corsair or NZXT or Lian Li, as opposed to like ASUS's solution, which is non-proprietary, doesn't require USB headers. It's become that interesting balancing act that you kind of seeing an old spec being something that people are asked for. So that is actually something that we have passed over back to our design team, and they are kind of mindful of wanting to try to add in more internal ports on a motherboard. So while right now not the vast majority of them are going to have 3 ports, that is something that at least I would say on the higher end ROG Strix models and definitely also on Maximus or Crosshair series boards we're attempting to account for, but we're definitely trying to see, you know, how many boards we can try to move in and kind of standardize, I think, a 3 USB 2 configuration, right? Although for those of you that run into that issue, I'm sure Tech505 can confirm this. This is probably what they're doing, is you can buy little kind of internal USB hub breakout adapters from different companies. So essentially you plug that into your internal USB 2 header on the motherboard, and that gives you then kind of multiplexes those ports out, and then you have more internal USB 2 ports, right? Okay. All right. Facebook user asked a question is, has ASUS had any plans to make a USB ARGB controller so people have more ARGB headers to use in Aura? That's actually a great question. So we did actually do one for our prior cooler, but we haven't released a standalone one. We do actually have an upcoming Tough Gaming ARGB controller. Let me see if I have it right here. I think we showed it off actually during CES, and I don't know if we covered it during our CES recap, guys. Let me see right here. If I have it right here, if I can find it. Let me see if I can bring it up. This one won't actually be a USB based because it's pretty much just a passive splitter, although it does take supplemental power, and the supplemental power is important to provide superior stability for a higher number of LEDs, as well as if you have higher wattage based fans or fans that also take potentially higher amperage levels, which is becoming a little bit more common with some fans that are running at higher speeds, right? Let me see right here. Okay, yeah, I don't think I have it here. I know we have it in the PCDIY group, guys, so you guys can check it out, but I'll make a note to definitely show it to you guys. But it's a cool little small little hub accessory that we're going to have that actually has ARGB headers, and it also has fan headers on it. It's probably going to be released before the end of Q1. Probably not a very expensive accessory, probably maybe about something like in the $20–25 range. If you guys actually check out the tour that we did with Paul's Hardware on his YouTube channel for CES, you can actually check it out there. We did actually show that off, so that will be coming out in the not too distant future. Okay, all right, so there we go. There we go, guys. Okay, so let me go ahead and give me 1 second here. Okay. All right. So next up, let's check and see if we have any other BIOS updates that I wanted to go ahead and touch on. All right. So we had our 256 gigabyte memory density. For those of you wondering about most of the motherboards, at least for this week that we're seeing that on, a lot of the Z790 series, so the Prime, Tough Gaming series, all have that update. Also, an ROG Strix model also has that corresponding update. So now the last update I want to give on is probably going to be for the vast majority of our AM5 based motherboards, and this is going to be specifically for Ryzen 8000 series users. So let me go ahead and bring up another UEFI BIOS update here. So let's bring up a board. What should we do? Let's look at a cool board. I think we've been focusing on some boards that haven't necessarily always get, I think, as much visibility as some of the higher end boards. So let's keep in that kind of theme. And we'll go with a Tough Gaming B650 board. What do you think about that? I like actually this model. I think it's a great model for the price as well. So let me bring up here our updates for this guy. Okay. Okay, so this update is going to be for pretty much for those of you that are going to be running the latest generation Ryzen, essentially kind of APU, the 8000G series based processor. So if you're going to be utilizing this and you're looking to maximize the performance, one of the interesting characteristics in terms of this CPU is that it's a CPU that also can get leverage within, of course, laptop configurations. But laptop configurations and regarding to their kind of holistic or the total thermal environment is actually a bit different than what you would have in a desktop type system. In a desktop system, you're generally going to have much more performant type of thermal solutions because you have more room. So you can do something like, here I've got our Tough Gaming LC. This is, with a 360 millimeter AIO on it, right? You're not going to have that inside of a laptop. Plus also in laptops, oddly enough, you have to account for other thermal characteristics that might include things like the thermals that you might have for, let's say, the surface of the keyboard area, right? And so you're trying to actually balance not only CPU temperature, but actually ambient temperature for maybe the rest of the system itself. So there's actually a monitoring value that's actually called skin temperature that exists within this. And so to help to maximize performance and not reduce performance on the desktop side, there's a UEFI BIOS update has been issued to essentially, let's say, normalize or maximize the performance resident to a desktop environment. And so for those of you, again, going to be running that part, you just head over to the service and support site for your motherboard, head over to the drivers and tools section, go over to the BIOS and firmware, and you will see specifically it will say it disables STAPM, right? So that is going to be that specific aspect in terms of that operating metric. It disables that functionality and helps to maximize the performance. So again, if you guys are running your normal Ryzen 7000 series based processors, you don't have to worry about this. You don't need to do this UEFI update. It's up to you if you want to go ahead and update it. If maybe you also are running an older version of a Giza and maybe you want some of the benefits that the newer Giza have been put in. But overall, it's really only suited towards those that are going to be running specifically these Ryzen 8000 series based processors. Okay, so just something to keep in mind in that respect. So that wraps up pretty much all of our UEFI BIOS updates, guys. We're going to get ready to talk about some of the new products, but let's lastly quickly see if we have one last question that might have popped in there. So let's quickly see here. Somebody on Facebook is asking us, are there any plans for more micro ATX motherboards on the AM5 socket? Maybe a Tough Gaming B650M plus Wi-Fi 2. I would never say never. We actually did have one really great board, and I absolutely loved it. We had only a limited production of it, and this is, of course, quite a bit higher end than what you have here. I think PG PCs is here in the stream, so he might know the board that I'm talking about. But my personal favorite board of our entire actually AM5 lineup was this guy, which was a personal passion project to be able to work with our team at wanting to get this reintroduced, which was the Crosshair X670E Gene. The challenge really right now is that realistically, micro ATX is a little bit more of a niche segment within the market. The vast majority of the demand and the interest for users is first and foremost with different types of ATX-based solutions, and that's the reason why you see so many types of ATX motherboards across not only different types of aesthetics, features, function, specs, but also price points. We do know that there are some people that like to maybe see one or two more offerings, so it is something that I think we're discussing with our team, but there's no immediate right now motherboard that I can tell you that we're going to have on the micro ATX side, specifically for the AM5 platform. But I think you're right. I think if we were to do an update, I think something like a B650M kind of class board or something like that would be, I think, a great choice. Maybe even an ROG Strix model. Plus, we also recently launched, our AP201 not that long ago. That's a great micro ATX chassis. We have it in white. We have it in black. We also have our brand new A21 chassis, which is a micro ATX chassis, a little bit larger, plus it also supports BTF. So I think it would be great to have maybe, one or two more offerings just to be able to kind of serve that niche in the market, right? So as always, keep letting us know that that's what you're interested in, and make sure you're watching the weekly streams to find out about those updates, okay? So yeah, PGPCs goes the Gene. I love mine. Yeah, definitely agree, right? So Judsir's asking, JJ, will the PG32UCDM have DisplayPort 2.1 and 4.4? I won't talk about the UCDP because the UCDP is still a bit away, so it's not a 100% finalized specification, right? We just showed off at CES. We're still a bit away, probably not going to be launching that monitor until Q2. So as always, we'd like to try to kind of withhold specification until we feel very confident and clear about all kind of the features, functions, and specifications. So I would say, continue to watch the stream. We'll probably have more updates regarding specifically the UCDP, probably when we get closer to the very end of March, early April timeframe, as we get a little bit closer to the launch availability. Okay? All right. So overall, that covers our UEFI BIOS updates, guys. So that gets you covered right there. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next round of updates. So we're going to go ahead and talk about some new products. And again, if anybody is interested in getting any one of those updates regarding UEFI BIOS, just make sure to join the PCDIY group. We'll give you all the latest updates when it comes to those products in the group in our featured post announcement. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can always feel free to tag Lee. Lee is our new community manager who came on at the very end of last year. So he has gone ahead and taken over generally the day in and day out at administration and moderation for the PCDIY group, but you might occasionally still see me popping up there when time affords. Okay. All right. And maybe, and let me know. I was thinking, maybe I'll see if I can dedicate maybe one day a week to do like a little bit of an AMA where I pop back in there a little bit more and maybe try to collect some questions. Although, again, generally, if you have any questions, always feel free to tag Lee. He's a great addition to our team, and he can help to support you if you have any questions or kind of inquiries when it comes to new products, features, functions, designs, or anything along those lines. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next one. What are we going to talk about for, I think, new product here? Give me one sec. Let's go ahead and just quickly knock out the motherboards, and then we're going to talk quickly about the UCDM, and then I think we'll do the graphics cards, the Wi-Fi 7, and then we'll round things out with the NUC 14 Pro. I think that sounds good. This week, we're probably not going to do the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, but starting next week, don't worry, we'll kick that back up again, guys. And so if you haven't submitted a build that you'd love to see featured here on the PCDIY live stream, make sure to go ahead and submit your build. Again, you can check out the link in the PCDIY group. So if you've got a build, whether it's new, whether it's old, whether it's water-cooled, mini ITX, or ATX, feel free to go ahead and submit it so that it can get featured here on our weekly live stream. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look and see which board we've got up first. It's going to be the Prime A620 Plus. Okay, let's go with this board right here. Give me 1 second to bring this one up. All right, so this is going to be a pretty inexpensive board, not too pricey, right? $140. Really, I think this is going to be best suited for those that are just looking for a solid and stable system, maybe looking to put something like a Ryzen 7600, maybe for general kind of productivity, basic system. You could definitely do gaming, general desktop use. You don't have super heavy demands. You're not really focused on things like overclocking or need super high level of IO or expansion. You just want to be able to have a modern platform that you can put together. It's not expensive, going to be stable and reliable and get up and running. So I think that's definitely where you have a solid foundation here with the A620 chipset. So of course, A620 is going to be the most entry chipset right now with AMD's AM5 lineup. So you got A620, you got B650, B650E, then you move into X670 and X670E. So you kind of, that goes all the way up to the very, very high end base to boards. So here, what are you going to have? Pretty straightforward. If we take a look at the board, you're going to see it's under the Prime design aesthetic. So a simple, clean, nice aesthetic with a little bit of white contrast. Works well for white or black kind of base themes. In terms of our kind of specification support, pretty straightforward. So this is going to be PCI Gen 4 and DDR5. You still get solid things like Wi-Fi integration, 1 gigabit LAN that's going to be on there. You do have actually one USB-C port, which is still nice on the rear, and it still also has an internal USB-C header. So internal USB-C for your front panel, and also a rear USB-C. So even though this is a more entry board, you still get that new spec on both sides of the board. Wi-Fi includes Bluetooth as well, and you got your modern PCIe Gen 4 support for, of course, your graphics cards. There's no even Gen 5 based graphics cards on the market, and you've got two M.2 slots on here. It is important to note that the secondary M.2 slot is not PCI Gen 4, it is PCI Gen 3, but in the reality, for general desktop use, for even gaming, for normal productivity, you won't effectively see the difference. Even though, really fast drives can, of course, go 5, 6, 7, 8 plus gigabytes a second, you only see that performance when you're running a synthetic benchmark, right? So if you're going to run like Atto or Crystal Disk or something along those lines, when you talk about normal real world workloads, the mass majority of situations, you're probably talking a couple hundred megabytes a second. So that's actually well under even SATA speeds. So really there's not a real world kind of usable difference between Gen 3 and Gen 4. Although if you like your benchmarks, of course, you know, faster is better, bigger is better, right? In that perspective. So this will be a nice little update, again, coming at $140. You can pretty much run any CPU you want in here because it is an AM5 based socket, but I think based on the power delivery, the thermal design management, my recommendation would probably be hitting something, like I said, maybe one of those 8000 series base, CPUs that have, of course, integrated graphics. Maybe you don't want to run a discrete based graphics solution, or maybe something like a 7600 or 7700. I think those would be great options to pair with something in a board in this class. Then maybe pair that something with like a 7600 XT, maybe like a 4060 based graphics card. That could be a nice little kind of budget min-maxing type of configuration if you wanted to build kind of a performant entry type of gaming foundation, or again, just maybe a solid build for general productivity, general use. So that's going to be the Prime A620 Plus. Now, moving a step up, and I will go ahead and double check on questions here in a moment for somebody that might have another question. But I'm going to go over to my next board and we're going to pivot. Instead of staying with AMD, we're going to head over to Intel, but we are going to go over on the Intel side and also be focusing on a more entry-level board. So give me 1 second here. This is going to be for the Tough Gaming B760M plus Wi-Fi 2. And actually, that price has been slightly adjusted. Let me go ahead and tweak that. It actually is a little bit cheaper. It's $200. It's not $210. Okay, so this is going to be, again, great option for those looking for a micro ATX based board, stable and reliable. You can put any CPU on in there. Now, you don't want to use a K-series CPU because K-series CPUs denote overclocking support. So ideally, you would want to go with like a KF variant, right? Well, excuse me, not a KF variant, but a non-K part. So essentially still being able to maximize, the number of cores that you're looking for, but you don't need that overclocking CPU support. Now, B-series chipsets do allow for DDR5 overclocking. So if you want to be able to run faster memory speeds, 6000, 6400, 66, 7000, that's entirely doable on this motherboard. So you don't feel like you're limited in that respect. So if you still want to buy higher speed or an even higher density memory kits, you do have a support on this guy. In terms of the rest of the spec, I'm very happy with this. You've got PCI Gen 5 support that's on here, DDR5 support, 2.5 gigabit networking, and 20 gigabit USB-C on the rear, our ASUS noise canceling, and Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth. So this is, I think, a really solid, unit when you talk about the kind of core specifications it's got on there. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8 ports on the rear. Again, that Wi-Fi 6 and 6E support. This is also our new antenna design. So the really cool thing about that antenna design is that it's a push fit antenna design. It doesn't have to screw in. So it makes it really easy when you're just connecting your antenna. You just push it in, it locks into place, better signal attenuation, better performance, and it's easier to work with. So big fan of that. You also get your internal USB-C header that's also on this model. And you're going to have three PCIe, NVMe, M.2 SSD slots on this board. So I think that is a nice addition on that board. Let me see, is my image going to come up here? There it goes. And you can see that you even get 2 heat sinks on this board, which I think is nice. And then you also even have the revised Q-Slim design, which is pretty cool. This is one of the first times on a micro ATX board that we have this design implementation, which is pretty cool. Again, helping you to have access to be able to easily eject the graphics card in there. So I think a really solid base board. Again, if you don't want to break the bank, a really solid option, looks good, performs well. We're running any CPU, good memory configuration, good expansion support. So check out that B760M. And I'm just going to throw it in there as a plug that I think a great option for this chassis, and we have it on promo right now, is going to be the A21. So if you guys remember, the A21 is going to be our brand new micro ATX chassis. So here's the exploded view, got lots of rooms in there. This guy can support, you can see up to 3 fans there in the front, high level of porosity, great airflow. You can do a 240, you can do a 360. It fits any size graphics card in there. It actually supports normal micro ATX motherboards, mini ITX, and is also the first chassis on the market right now that actually even supports BTF motherboards. So maybe even in the future, if you want to install a BTF system where you can actually see that there's no cables on the motherboard because all the cables are on the back, you can actually run that configuration. So that's the A21. You'll actually see right here, if we look at the BTF based design, you can see actually all the cutouts are already there. So that's really cool. This chassis supports both. And right now this chassis is only $59. So $59, you pair that up, you pair it up with something like, I think like a 4060. Again, you got a really nice combination in terms of the overall performance. So let me go ahead and drop these two guys in the chat here. And I'll drop in the link for the A21 as well. And let me go ahead and take a look and see if we've got any questions for you guys. So give me 1 second. We'll drop in the A21 chassis in there for those of you that are interested in it as well. All right. Landon's asking when we'll be able to buy the PG32 UCDM. So we'll be talking about the UCDM in a little bit, but again, our kind of upcoming launch is going to be on the 16th. So on the 16th, you'll start to see all the corresponding information regarding actually the pricing and the availability release, along with the first wave of kind of hands-on impressions as well as media reviews. There have been a couple of early kind of seedings that some of our ASUS team has been working with global media outlets, but you'll see a much bigger kind of level of visibility on it and coming up on the 16th, but I'll touch on that in a little bit, okay? John is going, I'm not sure exactly what the question is right there. 3 M.2 slots. Yes, that is what I noted on there. So Facebook user goes, says the Tough Gaming B760M Plus Wi-Fi is going to be good for people who wanted to get into a micro ATX build on the Intel side of anyways. It would be a good board to use over the ROG Strix Z690-G gaming Wi-Fi. I love that gaming Wi-Fi board. It is a really nice board, but it is also a bit more expensive. And I think if you look at the overall kind of feature, function, and spec for that model, minus, like I said, the CPU overclocking support, I think that for the vast majority of people, that B760M Plus is going to be a better choice. So I think for a lot of people, I would definitely check that board out. Let me go ahead and quickly see here. Sorry, did I miss a response as to when the ROG Maximus Z790 Hero BTF and the ROG Strix RTX 4090 BTF edition will be made available? Hey, John, we actually talked about this a little bit in last week's live stream. So right now, the initial actually launch, let me go ahead and bring up the image for those that might be wondering about. I think I should have my ROG BTF right here. Let me see. Let me see if I have my ROG BTF images. Yep, I have them right here. So this is, it's actually the little background that we had in here. So this is, of course, going to be the launch set of hardware for BTF for ROG. The first BTF ecosystem of components that will launch will be under the Tough Gaming lineup. So that would be the Tough Gaming GT302, the Tough Gaming Z790 Pro BTF, as well as the Tough Gaming GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super, all in white. So all three of those in white. On the ROG side, it'll be the Hyperion, the ROG Strix 4090, and then the Maximus Z790 Dark Hero, all BTF versions. In terms of timeline, probably going to be very end of March going into early April. We don't have a 100% concrete kind of timeline yet, so make sure to just keep tuned. Again, we pretty much do this stream weekly, so we'll be providing updates when actually everything is getting ready to ship out in terms of channel availability. You'll also see those updates in the PCDIY group under a featured announcement. So if that's something that you're excited about, you'll be rocking and rolling with those updates if you're checking out the stream or you're watching the post in the group. JJ, do you have boards with connectors on the back? Yeah, that's what we just showed off, right? Those are going to be all of our BTF corresponding models. I don't yet have one on here, but don't worry, guys. We'll definitely be going hands-on, rest assured, in a dedicated live stream talking about BTF, and we're definitely right now working with quite a number of media partners, so you're going to expect to see a lot of different and kind of hands-on impressions for media. So if you want to see what that real-world experience is like building a BTF system, we're going to be working with quite a number of media in North America, both in Canada and the US, to allow you to kind of get that hands-on experience with what it's going to be like putting together a system with the ASUS BTF initiative. And you can also help to see the BTF Alliance come into play as well, where we have strong partnerships with a large number of partners that we're working with on the chassis side. So more to come on that side, okay? Okay, so lastly, I'm going to go to the next one right here. 2 weeks ago, I made a purchase of the ROG 4090 Strix. I received it and currently just loving it, playing some Battlefield 5 with RTX games on any suggestion. I mean, when it comes to RTX, I think you got to say, you know, one of the first ones you got to jump into is, of course, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk does look stunning. Alan Wake is really cool. But I mean, there's definitely, I mean, it really just depends. I'm actually a really big fan of the 40K world, right? So, you know, Dark Tide actually, I think is pretty cool. And there's definitely a lot of stuff out there. Actually, Minecraft is actually pretty cool to just see it in terms of actually RTX. But there's actually a lot of different game titles out there. It just really comes down to what is kind of your preference in terms of kind of your gameplay experience, and you know what is your monitor resolution, kind of what's your target. But of course, with the 4090, you've got a lot of stuff on there. But I would definitely probably say, I mean, Modern Warfare does look really good when you crank stuff up. Alan Wake is really immersive, especially if you got a really nice kind of IPS or you got an OLED-based display. Looks really good. Dark Tide, Doom is really good. Dying Light 2 is actually really impressive, not only for its HDR experience, but also for its RTX performance. So maybe check that out. What about anybody down there? Do they have any recommendations? Portal 2 is actually really good also in RTX. You've got Diablo if you're a fan of kind of that. You know, there's the update that of course also came out, right, with the Witcher, right, that has that as well. And I'm trying to think of anything else that kind of maybe comes in. I think probably maybe the other two that might be kind of just fun or interesting, a little bit different. Maybe Forza. I'm a really big Forza guy. A lot of people know that. And Sackboy. Sackboy is actually really cool. If you like maybe something a little bit kind of more fun, a little bit kind of more platformer, check out Sackboy. I think it's called The Big Adventure or something like that. Actually pretty cool RTX implementation in there as well. So thanks for being Team RG and Team Strix. All right, let's go ahead and keep moving things along in terms of some of the updates. So I said we were going to do the two motherboards, so now let's go ahead and jump into the ROG Swift PG32UCDM. So again, this is going to be really our upcoming kind of key monitor. So we recently launched, let me go ahead and put this in here, PG32UCDM, right? So we're going to touch on this, and you know, we've already kind of released quite a number of OLED-based displays. So I'll give kind of a little bit of a recap of what we've done kind of recently and kind of what we have coming up down the pipe, right? So let's go ahead and do this. So I think first up, just as a quick recap, I'll touch on it again here, is we have the ROG Swift OLED PG49WCD. So this one actually came out right towards the end of last year, right before CES, but it's still a fantastic option. This is going to be a QD OLED based display, 49 inches, so 5120 by 1440, 140 hertz. That ultra low pixel response time, right? So sub 1 millisecond response time because of OLED. Really nice refresh rate. I also really like the actual resolution and the minimal curve on this one because it's almost like having two 27-inch displays kind of side by side, and that works really well for the great feature that we have on here that we're going to see on a lot of our displays, which is our smart KVM feature. So if you want to run like picture in picture, that's really cool. So imagine having like your desktop, maybe you've got a second system where you're installing the operating system, you're in the UEFI BIOS, maybe you've got a game and maybe you've got a secondary window, maybe you've got a laptop connected and you want to run that in there. We have both picture in picture and picture by picture, and there's different resizable options you have available on the monitor. So that is a really, really great feature. Plus the smart KVM can even work to do drag and drop file transfer. Some manufacturers actually only have USB 2 ports on their displays. All the displays we're going to be talking about have USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports on there. So you can even do 10 gigabit file transfers from one system to the other system across the desktop, which is pretty crazy. I love having it like on one laptop and then my other desktop system, and I take a file over and I can just drag it over from one desktop to another. It's pretty cool. Works really, really nicely. Again, this is a really great option. This one you'll see it coming in at $1,500. If you guys had been watching pricing though, this model since last year, we've had already a couple price promotions where we've sold it at $1,299. I still think it's a great price at $1,500, but if you watch it, maybe you'll watch out for that promo savings. Again, a really nice choice if you want to get a big, bold, bright, fast-based panel. Also really great for not only SDR, but also HDR-based gaming. The last point that I want to touch on this one, but it will also travel through on the PG34 and the PG32 that we're going to talk about, is All of these do feature our ASUS OLED Care technology, and really what we're doing with our OLED Care is it's a combination of different things. One is going to be our custom heatsink technology. So these are passive heat sinks that we're generally putting on the essentially the controller that we have on the monitor and the power delivery. Those two things are important in terms of helping to stabilize performance, help to improve brightness, help to reduce potentially the temperature, the operating temperature of the panel, which can help to mitigate burn-in. All those things are kind of baked in. But I also really love this Display Widget Center. If you guys haven't seen me talk about this, really what Display Widget Center does is it gives you a singular one-stop shop within the operating system to be able to go ahead and tweak and tune and control settings in the monitor. So if you want to adjust your brightness, your contrast, different things along those lines, you can get all that done. Plus, we have a lot of really great options under our OLED setup, which are all built in to help to better safeguard the system. So you can do things like you can do uniform brightness limiting, target mode, pixel cleaning. You can actually run a cycle reminder. You can do screen movements, adjust logo brightness, or even our screensaver, which our screensaver will actually do 3 different things all automatically for you. You don't have to manually engage it. Just turn it on and it will automatically actually go through making things like taskbar adjustment, I think corner detection, right? So anything that's kind of maintaining itself on the periphery, there's actually multiple parameters that it all automatically engages. And so instead of hiding stuff within submenus, we try to make it really easy, really clear for you to be able to take advantage of outside of just being able to make all those adjustments. So that's the PG32UCDM. Let's go ahead and also now quickly touch on the PG34, and then we'll touch on the PG32. PG32 was our last update that just came out in the beginning of this year, so it pretty much just launched last month, right? So that's going to be the PG34 WCDM. This one's coming in at $1,300. This one is a 3440 by 1440. Now this one is a WOLED versus a QD OLED. It's also the 3rd generation WOLED panel. Now I didn't note it on the prior model, but this QD OLED, for those that might prefer a kind of semi-gloss or type of glossier type display, that's what you're going to have on QD OLED. When you go to the WOLED, this is going to be a matte AR type of polarizer that's on here. I still think they look fantastic. Some people have a preference. Do keep in mind that from an overall lighting environment, this is going to be much more reliable in terms of just giving you a more consistent experience. Like right here in this room, I've got direct overhead lighting. I also have a window that I actually have to block off here that can shine directly onto display. That would be much better handled with an AR-based matte coating. So for most users, it's favorable regardless of the environment you're going within. With a QD OLED panel, you can get the disadvantage because there's actually no polarizer that's on there. If you directly get light that hits it, it can actually make sometimes your blacks seem somewhat gray. So it's a little bit better if you have more of a controlled lighting environment than if you have more of a consistent overhead lighting environment. So do keep that in mind. Now, when we talk about this spec, this one, 3440 by 1440, 800 R curvature. So that's pretty aggressive. Gives you that nice wraparound effect. 240 hertz. Overall, pretty much about the same response time. Brightness values are going to be pretty similar. I would probably say this is going to be a little bit brighter. You could both classify these as monitors that are in that HDR 1000 plus category in terms of the performance. Smart KVM, it also has the threaded mount, the custom heatsink design. We also did formally phase in here a 2-year warranty protection that we have on this model, but we'll talk a little bit more about the supplemental enhancement that we have on the PG32 that will be launching, like I said, shortly. So that is going to be the PG34 WCDM, okay? So one other point that I didn't note in here, but it is, I think, important to note is the Delta E. All of the ROG Strix and ROG Swift-based displays are factory calibrated. Let me know right now in the chat, is your monitor calibrated? Most users we know don't actually calibrate their monitor. They just kind of maybe, you know, eyeball it. They kind of go, does that look right? And they maybe kind of tweak it, or maybe they download somebody else's ICC profiles, which doesn't necessarily always work because people don't realize that you have panel-to-panel variants. So when you calibrate, you always want it to be specific to your monitor. That being said, that is an advantage with our ASUS ROG displays, as they all come factory calibrated individually from the factory. Okay, so that is going to be the PG34. So now let's go ahead and talk about the PG32. So again, our pretty much formal kind of launch kickoff for the PG32 is going to be on the 16th. So that's just going to be coming up in just a couple of days, where you're going to have the PG32UCDM. So this will be the first 4K 240 hertz gaming display that is not going to be curved on the market. We're very excited to be offering it. Now, I won't say it's the first 4K 32 because we actually already had a 4K 32-inch display on the market. We were the first manufacturer. We actually still have that monitor. It's under our ProArt line, but it uses a different panel. It uses a non-W OLED panel, a native RGB OLED panel from Japan OLED, or this is actually from LG as well. So the LG third generation panel, very similar to the PG34. What you're going to be getting here, excuse me, this is a QD OLED panel as opposed to the W OLED panel on the PG34. So again, we kind of go back from when we went to 49, where we had glossy, we then had the 34, where you had the AR. Now here we go over to the QD OLED again, so we're going to get glossy. So again, always kind of keep in mind QD OLED is going to give you that semi-glossy type of experience. You have to account maybe a little bit more for that ambient handling, direct overhead lighting, maybe periphery-based lighting considerations, and then the W OLED, which would be that AR. But the rest of the spec, pretty close to what we just talked about, right? So 32 inches, 31.5, 4K resolution, 240 hertz, that high brightness performance, essentially an HDR 1000 base certified monitor. It does have the uniform brightness limiting, USB-C, the smart KVM with picture-in-picture, picture-by-picture support, the display widget center. Now, one update is going to be the actual warranty policy that we'll be offering for the PG32UCDM, and this will actually be launching with a 3-year warranty protection. Quite comprehensive in that. So that is going to be a differentiation. So keep that in mind, that if you're looking for even an additional level of assurance, we will be offering that for the PG32UCDM. So a 3-year warranty level of protection on this display. In terms of that. And that all wraps up into, again, our OLED care protection policy. So when we talk about the OLED care, again, remember that's everything from the thermal design to the firmware software experience that we have through, of course, Display Widget Center and mapped in within the firmware. That is also going to include the warranty and the burn-in protection. And it also includes something that some of you guys may not be aware of. ASUS openly discloses a policy for what we call dead pixel or dark dot and bright dot. Some manufacturers do not openly disclose a rating or a standard for this. With ASUS, we do have an open rating specification that we will adhere to from our warranty standpoint. So that means if you're wondering, you can actually go to the panel warranty page and you can actually see if the panel has a certain number of bright dots, then it would qualify for warranty coverage. If it has a certain number of dark dots, it would qualify for warranty coverage. Some manufacturers do not have an open statement in what they will cover regarding bright dot or dark dot. So we factory calibrate, we provide you that burn-in warranty protection. We're also providing you our ARR policy, which is an ASUS rapid replacement option. It does mean you have to put a credit card on file if you want to have an advanced replacement, but that is also something part of our comprehensive warranty program. So again, you look for pretty much all the final details, more to come on the 16th for the PG32UCDM. Let me go ahead and quickly see. I know I've covered quite a bit here, so let's just see what we might have in terms of questions that might pop up, and we'll go from there. Is ASUS able to squeeze out any performance out of the UCDM, or is it still 1000 nits, etc., expressed by the 3-year burn-in? Thanks for that feedback. I can't give you yet the performance numbers. I've seen varying performance numbers. I think the more important thing to remember when you talk about brightness performance is not just the certification number. A very good example of that is if you looked at our ROG Swift PG27 Swift OLED monitor, right? Even though there was many manufacturers that all had 1000 nits, it was irrelevant. Really what you saw is ASUS had much better SDR performance and much better HDR performance, because there are going to be aspects of how the actual firmware is tuned. There's also the elements of, like I said, the thermal management. So there's other factors that come into the overall performance that you will see presented onto the display. When we actually internally are doing our testing, we do testing not only at target windows, so things like what are we seeing at 10%, what are we seeing at 3%, but also what do we see within video games themselves when you're playing games or when you're actually watching video content. So in that perspective, I can tell you that the numbers for me, I think, are quite performant. I think people will be very satisfied with that. I think, again, for people that might have seen older OLED displays and didn't feel that they were bright enough resident to either SDR performance or HDR, I think you can feel confident that you'll have a positive experience in that respect. But keep tuned. You get all kind of that weighted data in the not too distant future. But don't just focus, I think, on purely that certification number, if that makes sense, because that's not the only limiting factor. Also, we didn't note this, I believe initially at the launch, but it is already confirmed, is that we will also be offering Dolby Vision support, so we'll be that first one to offer that. We have also confirmed BFI support, so other kind of differentiation points that ASUS will be bringing to the bear, where ASUS is now the first manufacturer to be offering BFI support on OLED, which we're offering actually on our QD OLED, as well as our LG-based OLED solutions, and also Dolby Vision, although Dolby Vision is exclusive right now to the UCDM, and that will be with a forthcoming firmware update that won't be actually available on the LG units at this time. Okay. Absence of Logic says, I calibrate my monitor sometimes, but I haven't done it in a long time, just lazy after moving. We'll probably do it again since you got me thinking about it. Yeah, for reference, if you guys do have a colorimeter, generally the rule of thumb is that you want to do it about every 3, if not sometimes at least about every 6 months. You do have something that is called color drift. So generally in terms of the kind of the temperature of the monitor, your ambient environment, and just the way the panels work is you generally will get color drifting over time. So you do want to generally go back and try to make sure that you're calibrating your display consistently to make sure to have the best performance possible sustained over time, right? That's why, like our ProArt series displays, some of them even come built in with a colorimeter, which allows the actual monitor to consistently just calibrate itself. So you can come out every month and just calibrates, so you always get an outstanding experience. Let me go ahead and see. JC goes, calibrate every 3 months. Let's go ahead and give him a round of applause. Thank you so much, JC, for doing it right, man. Very, very cool. Thank you. So Mohammed goes, they're asking about a competitor. I can't comment on the competitor because I don't have a competitor's numbers. So I would just say, make sure to keep it tuned. I think, again, ASUS has really been an industry leader in terms of our performance for our ROG Swift-based monitors. Our team works really, really hard on looking at, like I said, the totality of the design from the thermals to our calibration process. We actually entirely redid our HDR calibration process specific for OLED panels to be able to target not only good tracking performance and good kind of like color accuracy, but again, also attempting to try to make sure that we have a great kind of out-of-box picture experience. So we feel very confident. I can tell you that there are definitely some differences on the MSI where there's aspects that the MSI model won't have. So you do kind of want to be cognizant of that just make sure to kind of look at the totality of, the whole kind of feature set, right? Do you want to be able to have things like the, the USB-C, the smart KVM, the threaded mount? I really love the threaded mount. Let me go ahead and show this to you guys. I think some people, they're not aware about this feature. I think it's one of the great features that we do have on our displays. So let me actually show you here quickly if I can bring this up. Let me see the 49. Yeah, let me see if I can show you this here. So this is going to be on our 49-inch display, but pretty much all of our ROG Swift monitors right now have this. So you'll actually see that on essentially the stand that we have for the display, it actually has a threaded mount. So that's pretty cool because the threaded mount allows you to easily attach accessories. So if you want to be able to go ahead and place something like a bracket so that you can have like a microphone and a light, maybe you want to put a mirrorless camera, maybe you want to top mount your microphone, you want to have different types of items, save that kind of desk space, you can do that and you don't have to worry about kind of additional accessories or kind of doing weird kind of jerry-rig type adjustments. So that's something, again, we've tried to look at the total experience. Even things like our stand, if you notice, all of the new displays have a very thin, wide base design. And that's important because if you want to be able to angle your keyboard and your mouse, that thinner type of design just gives you more room to be able to mount everything comfortably, be able to work with it so you can have a really good user experience. There's some manufacturers that might have a thicker, kind of more square stand, and you might not realize it, but then once you set the monitor up, it eats a lot more space there, and it'll kind of force you to not be able to put maybe the keyboard or your mouse in the location that might be more comfortable, kind of just more ergonomic for you, if that makes sense, right? Brandon notes, that's an amazing monitor. I would agree. I think it's a fantastic monitor. So we'll go with one more question over here. And again, if anybody has any other questions on that, feel free to go ahead and let us know. Is there any chance of the ROG Crosshair X670 Extreme getting restocked at the ASUS store or Amazon in the future? I can't find it on sale. We actually covered this in the past. The actual Extreme is no longer in production. Pretty much all of our boards outside of the Hero. So when you look at like a Formula model, an Apex, an Extreme board, an Impact, a Gene, those are all going to be what we refer to generally as a limited production motherboard. So that means that usually once the run rate production is completed, and this can vary, sometimes it can be 2 months, it could be 3 months, it could be 4 months, it could be 6 months. It just depends. Once that run rate is gone, it's pretty much no longer in production. So you pretty much want to get it when you can get it. Sometimes you might find people that have new old stock or they're selling it through Marketplace, but it's not an official kind of new production run. So yes, the Extreme is no longer in production right now. The highest end ASUS ROG motherboard that you can purchase is going to be the X670E Hero, but the Extreme is no longer in production. Right now, there's no immediate plans to offer an update or a refresh model. That's not to say that it might not ever happen, but right now, from an immediate perspective, the highest board that we do offer that is in production is going to be the Hero, okay? So Simon actually asked a really good question. Is the input lag similar on the UCDM and the AQDM, or one better? So this is actually something some of you might not be aware about. So this is actually a big difference sometimes between a TV and between a monitor, but it actually can also vary quite a bit from monitor to monitor. So ASUS has something internally that our team has coined, what we call our game fast. And so our game fast is essentially an optimization to our firmware design as well as the totality of what's called the display chain. Essentially, when you're making your physical connection, when you're talking about DP or DisplayPort, you want to try to not have anything that you're introducing in to essentially the scan in or scan out data. That can actually affect the latency, and that can be negative from a gaming perspective. So in that regard, we pretty much feel very confident that the overall input lag, right, is going to be pretty much the same. So very class leading. We generally try to set an absolute benchmark in that perspective of being right there in the best of the monitors on the market, if not the best. So again, you will see the game fast technology is present on every single one of the displays that we're talking about. So if it's an ROG Swift display, they all have essentially optimized input lag, which means low input lag, where we pretty much are trying to get it as low as possible. Okay. Let me go ahead and quickly see if there's anything else that came up here. We've got any other quick questions that came here. So Brandon's going, do TN panels have any benefit outside of just being more budget friendly? Actually, they do. It kind of becomes tricky. I mean, OLED is in a very interesting spot. And if we talk about kind of TN compared to IPS, I would say actually still one of the key benefits that TN can offer it is that the matrix performance of the way that the actual the liquid crystal kind of foundation works can be more favorable to switching with a better consistency and contrast. So when you talk actually about its kind of contrast performance in relation to kind of blacks and how they're rendered on screen, which can be very important for a lot of kind of FPS-centric games, especially like in corners or shadows, you actually will generally find that it seems punchier. It looks punchier, it's a little bit more contrasty, and it's a little bit more intelligible because it can more quickly and consistently switch into that state. So that's part of the reason why we worked very closely with the panel vendor when we designed the ROG Swift 540 Hz, and we went with an actual optimized, what we call esports grade TN-based panel, which was very performant. It was actually very color accurate. It had actually really good contrast. Really the only negative that it had, quote unquote, to IPS was the viewing angles. But in most situations, you're not viewing it, you know, from super far off, right? You're still viewing it pretty much on center. And in that perspective, it provided a better experience because we could pretty much give you the same color performance, right? But we would be able to give you much lower and much more consistent response times. So actually, TN inherently, because of its technology, I think is still the best option when you're talking about response and motion clarity, and I'd say to some degree punchiness for certain types of color rendering, especially like in that black stage. Although, of course, contrast is still superior with VA than it is compared to TN or IPS. So it still definitely has its place. And I think, you know, it was very impressive. The ROG Swift 540 Hz was the first monitor on the market in the LCD arena to ever consistently be able to achieve actually sub 1 millisecond response times, which was really, really impressive. I mean, that's you know, easy for an OLED based display, but that was a first, you know, for an LCD. So pretty true, pretty impressive in that regard. Okay. Let me see if there was any other quick questions. JB goes, would you consider the 480 hertz monitor as a version 2 of the PG27AQDM? I would kind of say yes and no. I mean, it depends because it's technically also a newer generation panel, right? It's a third generation panel. So you have improvements with that generation panel, which whether it's going to be like the clear edge technology, the MLA improvements, right? You're also going to have the faster panel performance. You have the BFI support, right? There's a lot of things that are getting added into that display. So we're also not going to replace that monitor even when that monitor comes out. So both of them will continue to exist because that monitor is still a fantastic option, right? I think for a lot of people, it's still the overall best well-rounded OLED option on the marketplace. The 480 hertz version just kind of takes things even further, that if you even want something that's even faster and clearer and even is brighter and will have even more features, then it will be a great option, right? Victor is asking actually a little bit more about the ARR. We'll have more complete information actually on the warranty section, so make sure to keep that tuned for that update. Right now, we're just providing that kind of initial confirmation that we've gone ahead and phased in. Like I said, we have support for the rapid replacement program in place. That is something we've already offered for years on all of our LCDs. In fact, compared to some other manufacturers, it's interesting. People have been talking about warranties when it comes to displays. ASUS is really one of the only manufacturers unilaterally on every single LCD that we've offered has always been a 3-year warranty. There are competitors in the marketplace that actually have an $800 LCD and literally only offer a 1-year warranty on their LCD. That's not the case with ASUS. Whether you buy a $110 monitor or you bought a $2,000 LCD monitor, they were all 3 years. So we have now, again, added in the burn-in warranty protection along with the openly disclosed bright dot and the dark dot pixel policy. And then we're also, like I said, adding in our thermal mitigation technology. We're adding in the OLED care options through firmware and through software. So trying to provide a comprehensive level of support for people that do want to adopt into an OLED based display. Okay. All right. So hopefully that covers most of those questions. If anything else comes up feel free to go ahead and let me know. Johnny goes, the ROG Ergo arm is going to be great. Yeah, let me go ahead and quickly touch on that. So I can go ahead and show you guys that if you want to see that, because I do think it's pretty cool. This is not ready yet to be released. It will be coming out in the not too distant future. But those of you that are looking at essentially at a monitor from ASUS and ROG, a lot of people sometimes might just want to be able to free up their actual desk space and be able to have essentially, you know, a really nice clean space and be able to be confident that it can carry their monitor. Especially I think after you get over 27 inches, there can be a big debate to know, is the monitor going to be able to easily be supported? Can I be able to position it, swing it out, adjust, and have it feel stable and reliable? So this will actually be our first monitor arm. Our goal is not to contend to compete with a lot of the great companies that are putting it out there. We just want to be able to offer a holistic experience for users that they can clearly know, hey, I'm buying this 27-inch display, I'm buying this 32-inch, I'm buying this 34-inch, I'm buying this 39-inch, and guess what? They're all going to be able to work with this monitor arm. So right now our estimated projected price is, I believe, about $200. It's really nicely made. This is all metal. It has nice chamfered corners. It has a nice little transparent design on there. It has thumb screws for easily actually attaching to the VESA bracket that's on the unit. It has a really nice T-handle based clamp design, which makes it really easy to torque in and clamp. Nice integrated cable routing right there. And of course, it perfectly matches with your display. This guy will be coming out around probably mid to late February timeframe. So, you know, it's in that kind of sweet spot that, again, if you're probably going to be considering an ROG based monitor, then you may want to also consider, of course, our upcoming ROG monitor arm, although it does use traditional VESA mount. So, of course, you can use any other monitor arm as long as it's designed to support the correct dimensions and the weight of the monitor. Okay, so that is going to be the ROG monitor arm. Okay. What is the weight? I'll have to confirm that. I think it's, I don't 100% remember the weight clearance right now, but I can confirm for you that we're certifying it up to our 39-inch base display. Although technically, I think we're verifying the 49 because I think the 49 might still be able to actually work, but it's still tentative. I know that we've done certification up to our 34 and our 39-inch base displays. Hey, Agent JC, if you guys haven't checked him out, make sure to go ahead and check out Agent JC, a great content creator. Actually, we've got Danny's Check channel also joining us here. Check two great creators right there that do great content, and you can sometimes actually see ASUS reviews on their sites. And actually, we're going to be reaching out. Actually, I think we've done some recent stuff with the Agent JC as well as actually with Danny. The light bar, yes. He was asking us about the light bar. Do I have the image for the light bar in here? I think I had it in the very first shot, right? Yeah, so that's actually this guy right here. It's a new light bar that we're going to be introducing, and that'll be coming around the same time frame as well, probably late February going to early March. This is really cool. It actually will have 3 different lighting zones. So it'll actually have a backward firing lighting zone, it'll have a forward firing lighting zone, or simultaneous. It has standard wide scale lighting and RGB lighting. It has a cool magnetic buckle clamp design, which is really easy to fit on. It actually can support curved and flat base monitors, and you can control all the settings inside of the Display Widget Center software, just like you can control your monitor. So really, really cool accessory. I don't have the finalized pricing for this guy. Probably going to be around, I think, the 150-ish to something is that like kind of price point. Don't hold me to that. Like I said, we haven't finalized the MSRP, but that one will be within probably the Q1 timeframe. So a great combination, but again, that's going to be a great accessory. Even if you don't plan to get a new monitor, maybe you have a current monitor, but maybe you just want to add a little bit of a desk setup vibe, maybe make it a little bit easier for you, a cool accessory that we will also be coming out with there with the monitor light bar. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add one more question here on the PG32UCDM, and then I'm going to finish wrapping up with our graphics cards and then the the NUC 14 Pro. But let me go ahead and see if we had anything else that kind of came up right there. Says this will be the best QD OLED. Just watch, guys. I think overall you can expect that we're going to have great performance. I think ASUS has been really well known to offer outstanding level of monitors performance. I think in terms of kind of the total design, when you look at our track record, I think on our generally our factory calibration, our fit and finish, you know, you look at the features and functions that we add into the display, I do think that it's going to be a fantastic offering, and we feel very confident that users that are looking for kind of a best-in-class experience, whether it's going to be this ROG Swift display or one of the others that we're going to have in the lineup, that's going to be a great choice. And I think that's the other thing that's important to note with ASUS. Some of the other manufacturers may be limited to only working potentially with one panel partner. ASUS right now currently works with multiple panel partners, so even within our upcoming lineup, right now ASUS is the only manufacturer that will have both QD OLED solutions and LG OLED solutions. So again, we're trying to offer a comprehensive level of choice and support for users, along with kind of a level of consistency, whether we're talking about our design, the features and functions, the software, the thermal management, the OLED care, all these things to try to give you the choice to hopefully find the monitor that works best for you. So keep it tuned, guys. All right. All right. Nelson goes is, will you have the arm and the light bar in white? Great question. That is something that we have actually sent over for feedback for our team. Actually, even consideration for having a white variant of one of these OLED monitors. We know right now we have a fantastic white ecosystem that even includes white displays. We have everything else in white, right? We have white chassis, motherboards, graphics cards, keyboards, mice, headsets, but we don't have any of these yet in white. But it is something that we know people have interest in. Right now, no immediate plans, but it is something that we've fed back to our product management team and our design team on. So again, just make sure to keep watching the channel for any respective updates that might come in regards to any type of color updates. Okay. Douglas, I can't give you any more information yet on BFI. Make sure to keep it tuned. We'll probably dive a little bit more deeply. Of course, you can expect, like I said, media reviews to start coming in on the 16th moving forward, but we will be covering kind of a deep dive technical primer that will include a lot of the technical details regarding, you know, what gets disabled, what works, what are kind of real target percentage numbers and stuff like that, so that, you know, if people want you know, some confirmation from us, we'll look to provide that information. So just make sure to keep it tuned. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, Douglas. Okay. So again, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to go ahead and let me know in there. You can go ahead and take a little bit of a drink here. All right, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and go. All right, so the next update that I've got right here is going to be just quick 2 updates on our graphics card side. So many of you are already aware, when it comes to our graphics cards, ASUS has a very extensive graphics card ecosystem. So when we talk about our graphics card series, let me see if I have, yeah, this one would work. This is pretty much like our graphics card lineup. We have our highest end series, which we don't generally make for every single model. Sometimes it's intermittent in terms of the release cycle. We have our formal ROG, so that means not ROG Strix, but just ROG. So that would be like recently we had the ROG Matrix, which has already gone out of production. It was a limited production run. So normally the highest end card that we will always offer will be our ROG Strix based graphics card. Then we have our Tough Gaming series. We will have a select model under the Noctua lineup. We have our ProArt series, we have our Dual series. We still do currently have our KO series, but we have not refreshed KO series under the 40 series or under the new AMD series based GPUs. So right now it is from the prior generation. We have our Phoenix series, which are going to be more compact, and then we also have our SL series. Not in here, but also another part of our graphics card series. We just recently launched our LP series, which is a reintroduction to our low profile. So we're actually going to have a 4060 low profile card, which actually I'm absolutely loving. So if you guys are going to be doing a small form factor build, I think you should definitely check out the 4060 low profile card. And we'll talk about that a little bit more once it gets ready to launch. And we also will probably be releasing our Turbo series refreshed for 40 series. So keep it tuned if you're looking for a blower type design 40 series based graphics card under our Turbo lineup. So the ProArt series, of course, launched originally with the 4080. We then did a 4070 Ti, a 4070, 4060 Ti, and a 4060. But of course, with the recent NVIDIA refresh, we have gone ahead now and replaced a couple of those models. So the 4080 is now being replaced by the 4080 Super. And of course, we have the 4070 base Super refresh, which is this model that I'm note on. So that's what we're going to be talking about here, which is the ProArt 4070 Super. And you'll see this is going to be the O, so that means the overclocked base variant. Fundamentally, that's not a large difference. It just means it's a slight kind of additional overclock in terms of the frequency. You can, of course, manually overclock it further if you want within the GPU tweak software. And the overall dimensions and the layout design is all going to be identical, so there's no difference in that respect. Now, one of the cool things that we've done with our ProArt series graphics card is dimensionally they're compact. They're all actually 2.5 slot. That helps to balance out, making sure that if you want to go with a dual slot layout, so if you're using a more professional application, so an example could be like DaVinci Resolve or Blender, different types of programs that can use the GPU for acceleration or compute-based purposes, won't generally be able to do a dual GPU configuration because there are 3.2, 3.65 slots. With these cards, they're designed to essentially always accommodate boards like our ProArt series or our ROG series, which have a dual GPU slot layout design, which while gamers can't use, professionals and creators can use. I love the clean, minimal design. There's no RGB on these cards. They are cool, they're quiet, they're performant, and I even love the subtle detailing that some of you may not realize, but I worked very hard to push our team to reintroduce something that we hadn't had for years, which was a black finish to the internal heatsink assembly. So they look really polished, really clean, great card update. So this is going to be the ProArt 4070 Super O, which would designate overclocked base model. Okay, so that is going to be the ProArt 4070 Super. Okay. And the next card update is going to be, let me go ahead and bring it up, is going to be the Noctua. So this, of course, has been a card that a lot of people, of course, have their opinions regarding whether you're a fan of the Noctua. Do you like brown? Do you not like the brown? I personally love it. I love the earthy, the kind of the warmth in, and this is really for people that are looking for the absolute not only coolest but quietest card in its class. It does feature an absolutely monstrous cooler in terms of its overall design. It is pretty much going to probably be the largest graphics card currently on the market in terms of its overall dimensional footprint. So it is a card that you do want to account for, that you have to have the spacing within your actually chassis to be able to correctly support this. So this is technically what we define as a 4.3 slot card. Again, remember that the 4080 ProArt is 2.5 slots. So 2.5 slots, this is a 4.3 slot card, but this is also going to be a little bit larger. This is 12.2 inches, I believe, versus the ProArt, I think, is a little bit below 12 inches. It's like 11.8 or something like that. So it's it's larger in every respect. So it's going to be, of course, a thicker card, larger card, but you also have outstanding thermals in terms of this. Although our other cards actually have very, very good thermal performance. But if you want super quiet operation, pretty much inaudible even under full load, this card is going to be for you. This is going to be the Noctua series. Again, we've had some amazing builds from people in the community that have utilized this card. And you can just see just the sheer density of that thermal solution. Has to be actually entirely redesigned and optimized. So some people think incorrectly, oh, we just take the thermal solution from like the Tough Gaming model and slap it on here. But that's actually incorrect. We actually have to redesign the dimensional pathology to align with the actual the fans. So if you actually take a look at the fans, these are traditional Noctua based, of course, liquid polymer based fans, 120 millimeters. So we have to optimize the surface area to correctly account for their actual downward firing static pressure and their airflow. So everything pretty much has to be tuned and optimized specific for the performance of these fans and what they allow for. So that is going to be the Noctua 4080 Super. Comes in at $1,300. Again, this will also be the O variant, so that means a factory overclock based variant as well. Okay, let me go ahead and quickly see if there's any quick questions that came up there on that side. Michael goes, I like the one in black better from Noctua. I think you're probably referring to the Chromax edition. I believe our friend Mr. Matt Lee, another creator, actually created like a modified hacked version of a Chromax based version. Right now there's no plans to make a Chromax based version, so if you want something that's kind of really dark and stealthy, I would recommend the ROG Strix or the Tough Gaming card. Here you can see the Tough Gaming. Looks absolutely fantastic in that horizontal profile, just a really clean kind of minimal finish in terms of the design, where it's got kind of that slate type of dark gray black vibe. Looks really, really good. So I would say Tough Gaming, although the ROG Strix card looks all black as well in the horizontal profile, even though some people think that it has color everywhere. It only has color if you're doing a vertical mount. If you're doing a horizontal mount, which I'm hashtag team horizontal. Are you hashtag team vertical? Or are you hashtag team horizontal? Let me know, okay? Michael goes, wondering about a future version of a Super. I don't know about anything on that side. All I can tell you is what we have in terms of what we're actively producing here. The Noctua one looks good, right? XXL is noting the performance in terms of brightness performance for monitors. So you always want to keep in mind that brightness, there's what I would again refer to as generally the peak performance for brightness is going to be always in a small percentage window. So usually it's going to be like in 2% or 3%. You might also actually have to shift into a specific color temperature. So you might have to be at 65K, and you might even have to go then into the brightness adjustment value and go from 90% to 100% to see the peak brightness. So if you are kind of HDI gaming, that is something you would keep in mind. Technically, I think the best value if you want color accuracy is going to be console mode. After you enable console mode, then go into the brightness adjustment value and go from 90% to 100% if you even want to push it even higher, right? So that is a couple of kind of points of feedback right there. Although realistically with an OLED panel, even if you're under quote unquote 1,000 nits, if you're in the range of about 750 to 900, because of the really impressive contrast in the per pixel lighting performance, right? It's really, really performant. It's still not as dynamic or as impressive as a mini LED display, because of course something like our ROG Swift mini LED display, I mean, it can do over 1,400 nits, which is absolutely stunning. Like in Battlefield, it's crazy when you see like the fire and the brightness and the embers that bright. But you know, OLED of course has amazing contrast, right? Okay, so I think Edwin goes, I would like to see an Apex Extreme in the future. Interesting. I don't know what you mean by an Apex Extreme. They're two different types of board designs. So an Apex, so are you saying you want an Extreme motherboard but with 2 slots? Because is that what you're defining being the Apex? Because the Apex has other things that make it an Apex, right? But if that's what you're talking about, that's an interesting possibility. You know, there's actually some potential merit, so I guess we'll see. Thanks for that feedback right there. Okay, so that is going to be that. Let's quickly go ahead and touch on this guy right here, and we're going to ready to go into our last item. So this one's going to be a cool little update. This is going to be the PCE wireless adapter. So this guy is pretty cool. if you guys have been wanting Wi-Fi 7, but you've got an older base system and you don't want to necessarily make the big jump or the investment to get a whole new motherboard, maybe you're very happy with your system, but you just want Wi-Fi 7, maybe you're going to upgrade to a Wi-Fi 7 router, right? Maybe you don't even have Wi-Fi 6 right now or Wi-Fi 6E, but again, you want to upgrade. You could make the investment here. So then later, even if you go to Wi-Fi 6E router or Wi-Fi 7 router, you've already got that spec support. So this will be our first Wi-Fi 7 PCIe add-in card. So we always release these. This is going to be, I think, a great new design update. It's got a really clean, simple design, really big, large heatsink on there with, of course, our high performance DBI antenna optimized design right there. That's also a magnetic base. So in terms of the overall performance, you're going to see that this is going to be able to support, like I said, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7. So you're going to have support for that 160 megahertz and that 320 megahertz, 6 gigahertz band support. Do keep in mind the antennas are optimized also for 6 gigahertz bands. So some people might be wondering about when you talk about the performance, right? What are you talking about when it comes into the real world? So it's pretty impressive. If we talk about pairing this with something like our BE96 or our ROG Rapture, which our ROG Rapture is going to be our flagship series Wi-Fi 7 router. Let me go ahead and bring that guy up. The BE98 Pro. We have already done some performance essentially tuning and assessment to kind of see what would you be getting if you want to be able to get the absolute fastest speed possible, right? It is pretty insane what you can get right now. So if we kind of start to break down the numbers, right? What you would generally probably see in most situations for like Wi-Fi 6 was probably going to be about 600 to about 900 megabits. And that would generally be in your sweet spot. So that's going to probably be in about 10 to about 20 feet, right? For Wi-Fi 6E, you broke the 1 gigabits performance barrier. You could actually be seeing speeds between like 900 to upwards of 1400 megabits or 1.4 gigabits. So how much faster can you go with a Wi-Fi 7 client and then a Wi-Fi 7 based router? You are going into true multi-gigabit level throughput. So with our BE98 and then paired up with our BE92, PCI add-in adapter, and this would be similar numbers if you had, of course, a motherboard. So like one of our motherboards that has Wi-Fi 7, you could literally be seeing speeds on the downlink side that are between 3 to almost 3.5 gigabits. That's absolutely crazy. You're talking about 3 times the speed of a gigabit Ethernet cable. That's just nuts. I think that's absolutely awesome in terms of super level of throughput and performance. And I think it's actually only going to get better as we continue to optimize firmware tuning. We get things more formalized in terms of driver. I wouldn't be surprised that in some cases you could probably see users that even are exceeding the 3.5 gigabit level of throughput. So really, really impressive in terms of the speeds. That is just on one side. Of course, you always have uplink and downlink. So there's always going to be a little bit of a delineation between your downlink. Your downlink is usually going to be faster than your uplink, but even in our testing, we generally almost found pretty parity. We're almost on the downlink and on the uplink in that kind of sweet spot of kind of, like I said, in that 10 to 15 feet, we were seeing around 3 gigabits of throughput performance or 3 gigabits plus. That's real world environment in a real situation. That is not theoretical numbers. We're talking about real, actual measured throughput. So really, really impressive stuff right there. So that is going to be the BE92 PCIe Wi-Fi 7 add-in card. Let's go ahead. Hey JJ, which Wi-Fi card is inside the BE? It's the BE200. I actually have to confirm. I don't know if it's Glacial Peak. Glacial Peak would be the Intel-based chipset. That is generally who we've focused on in terms of our chipset coordination. So I don't want to give you the confirmation without actually having that confirmed. So I can follow up and let you know on that side. But on our motherboards, take for instance, on our motherboards, I can tell you that we are using that. Some other companies are using solutions from other companies, such as those from MediaTek or from Qualcomm. On ASUS-based motherboards, we are utilizing Intel-based Wi-Fi 7 solutions, okay? Jay Deluxe is asking about, do we have any plans for glossy base options for LG OLED based panels? Right now, we don't have any plans to release one, but it is something that our team is reviewing. We do know that there's a segment of the market that they would prefer to not have an AR matte type of polarizer on the unit. Right now, the only options that we have available are going to be our QD OLED based solutions. So it is something that we are evaluating, but right now we don't have any commitment to say that, hey, you can expect this model with this time frame, but it is something that we are looking at. So it is something that we do know that users, again, have been asking for, and so we're evaluating it in terms of our kind of product design and development. And of course, if there's any updates, again, you'll find out about them not only through our normal kind of press releases and through media, but also if you're checking out the weekly stream or you're part of our PCDIY group, we'll definitely be talking about it there. Okay. JB goes, I have the PG32UCDM, man. Thanks for being RG Team Swift, and I love the 25-inch mode. Does the 480 hertz have it? Yes. So that's actually kind of like our esports mode. So yeah, right now we haven't finalized everything for that monitor, but tentatively, yes, our target is to also have the esports mode. We do have the esports mode even actually on other displays, like our PG34 also has like an esports mode as well. So if you want to be able to kind of run in that focused, reduced field of view so that you can really be tight and focused, you do have those options. So that is something that we know that actually people have liked as we've integrated in there. So many of these larger displays like the 34, the 39, the 32, they all have actual multiple options from like 16:9 to like esports modes to different aspect ratios, whether it's also a film mode or pixel by pixel. So we have many different kind of parameters that you can kind of define to find what is ultimately the most comfortable or the preferred kind of FOV or the actual fill ratio that you're looking for the display. Okay. All right. Okay, all right, so that takes care of that Wi-Fi adapter. So let's go ahead and wrap things up, guys. So we're going to go here with our ASUS NUC 14 Pro. This is a really exciting update. So for many of you guys, if you're not aware, ASUS not that long ago actually worked to integrate the NUC ecosystem of products into our product portfolio. So ASUS for years had already offered its own pre-existing mini PC ecosystem of products, and now we're happy to actually be able to bring in the Intel NUC team and put that as part of actually our design and development for small form factor mini PC based solutions. So you'll continue to see the NUC branding, but it will be ASUS NUC branding, and we'll be looking to continue to offer the same level of innovation, quality, and performance that ASUS is known for, and as well as the Intel NUC team was known for, but kind of combining that together to be able to do some really cool things. So let's go ahead and actually take a closer look at the models that we're going to have here for the NUC units. So we're going to have here, there's actually going to be two models. There's going to be a slim and there's going to be a tall model. So let me go ahead and bring up the slim model here. And so the slim model will be a little bit more compact. Fundamentally, all of the kind of features, functions, and specifications will be pretty similar. One of the main differentials is going to be that the slim is essentially only going to allow for 2 storage drives, where the tall model will actually offer for 3 drives. So the slim model will give you the ability to have 2 PCIe NVMe storage drives. The tall model will have 2 PCIe NVMe storage drives, including also a 2.5-inch SATA drive, so a total of 3 drives. That PCI specification is also PCI Gen 4. So these are actually utilizing the brand new Media Lake, or the Core Ultra based CPU architecture from Intel, using the Intel 4 the Intel 4 process. So you're getting the latest generation CPU architecture, which is pretty crazy. That means in these models you can have like up to 18 threads of performance. You've got the P core, the E cores, the new ultra performant E cores. You have the MPU for the new AI acceleration work engine. Really performant based design architecture. So if we take a look at the I/O, 20 gigabit USB, 10 gigabit USB, 10 gigabit USB. That's nice there. You've got, of course, integrated Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth on this unit as well. It also does have Wi-Fi sensing built in because it's part of the more advanced Intel certification process. That's actually pretty cool. So like if you walk away from the system, it can actively monitor that, and it can kind of like shut down or make the system go to sleep, turn everything off. And then when you actually come by in close approximation, again, with doing it with your phone, it can automatically kind of resume, wake up, and get back up and running, even log you in. So it's a really cool level of functionality that the wireless, you don't see any antennas, but that's all baked in there. It's all good to go. It has a revised toolless chassis design, so very, very easy to be able to actually open up. So you don't actually have to have a screwdriver to be able to actually open up the unit, access things like the SODIMMs, which this is using the latest generation DDR5 5600 MT, because you have that fast memory specification support from using that Meteor Lake CPU based architecture and that new IMC. So that means you can literally be running 24, you could be running 48, you could be running 64, you could be running 96 gigs of memory inside of this mini PC. So if you want to do these crazy like virtualization boxes, a SAN or a NAS, a Plex box, high performance computing box, if you want to do these NUC clusters, there's a lot of different things you can do. The cool thing is for the storage, there's actually an undermounted essentially swing access design where you can pretty much just unlock it and then be able to immediately access your M.2 based SSD. So very, very simple level of connectivity, excuse me, very simple level of accessibility to be able to upgrade your storage array. Thunderbolt 4 is integrated in here, HDMI 2.1, 2.5 gigabit networking, and then you can see also USB 2 port and then 10G. So all the way around, if we talked about in the front right, you had 3 ports, and then you have 4, 5, 6, 7. So a total of 7 ports on the unit for very, very good IO based specification performance. In terms of the wattage, these are going to be 40 watt based parts. So these are going to be actually on essentially the performance level of a high performance laptop. Keep in mind that like very thin and light performance based laptops are usually going to be around that 15 to maybe about 25 watt range for CPUs. These are essentially being targeting about a 40 watt power envelope, where you're using CPUs that can go up to around that 65 watt power envelope. So very, very good performance from this, along with the efficiency improvements that you have with Meteor Lake, which really give you an impressive level of desktop class performance. You're also going to add into this nice high airflow ventilation design, a rich and refined UEFI environment for all your management options, including really good fan control parameters and fan tuning profile options that you have in there. If we flip over here on the underside, let me see if I can bring it under. This is also the difference between the slim and the tall base version. Again, with the tall version, the main thing you're really looking to step up to is going to be that you get the internal support for that 2.5 inch base drive, versus here you're only going to have 2 drives that would be supported. Okay. When you go ahead and see here, there's that little lock mechanism. So this is the lock mechanism, very easy to go ahead and swing out, be able to access, open it up, and then if you want to be able to get on the inside to be able to access your M.2 SSDs, you're good to go. Very, very simple process, very easy to work with. And just like any of the prior NUCs or mini PCs, you do have VESA mounting support. So if you wanted to mount this on the back of a monitor, have a really clean and simple setup, you can also go ahead and achieve that really simply. Now, when we take a look at the inside, you'll actually see a really large and performant copper thermal solution, and that's done to be able to, one, make sure that we're exhausting out essentially that dust, debris, and dander, helping to maximize that we don't have the internal actually fan assembly get kind of caked in with different types of items right there. But also you'll actually see a high performance based heat pipe contact making contact with the IHS and the actual CPU, helping to ensure, like I said, good thermal performance and I think a reasonable level in terms of acoustic operation. So even though we have a very performant part in there, we still want to be able to make sure that we've got tempers in check and we've also got acoustics in check as well. So that is going to be the NUC 14 Pro that we have included in here. And again, if we just have a little bit of an access in that nice kind of dimensional layout for the PCB board, you can see that you've got your SODIMM right there that you have fully integrated on the unit, and you're going to be good to go. And then you've got your, of course, your M.2 based SSD support. So very, very simple and very easy. You can also see that for your M.2 based SSDs, you're also going to be leveraging an easy kind of push pin based design. So it's a simple kind of tool-free experience, very, very easy to be able to work with. Now, in terms of the configurations for these units, they will vary a bit in terms of what options you'll have available to you. So let me actually go ahead and bring this up. In total, I think we're going to have close to 25 different models when we talk about kind of all the permutations and options that are available on the marketplace. So we're going to have ones that are going to be finished product, which means that it has the CPU, the memory, the operating system, the SSD all come pre-installed, and you pick your variation. And that could mean, you're looking at models that might be $600, $700, $800, $1,000, but you could also be looking at Barebone models, which have a much lower price point because it's up to you to define the memory, the SSD, and then your operating system. The only things that then will be fixed would be all your I/O and the CPU selection. Now, some people asking about the GPU, one other cool thing that you talk about here on the GPU side is going to be, since this is Meteor Lake, we make the update from XE to this is going to be the Intel Arc based graphics. So for those that even are going to be running some type of gaming workload models on here, it's actually pretty performant. It's pretty impressive for these parts, or that new Intel Arc, especially with the driver enhancements, have actually gotten pretty good performance. Plus you have really rich media engine. You've got AV1 decode and encode support that's going to be on there. You even actually have RTX support, which is actually supported under the Intel Arc graphics architecture. So if we take a look right now directly from the ASUS store, this will be coming into stock shortly for the initial Barebone models. So you see right here we have the Core Ultra 5, so that's the 125H, and then we have the i7 higher end version. That's going to be the Core Ultra 7 155H without storage, without RAM, and you can get all the kind of core information that's broken down to you along with all the overview of everything. But we've pretty much talked about, I think, all of the corresponding features and functions and specifications. Again, we have the slim and the tall. And as I noted, even if we take a look at the i5 version, so I just wanted to show you guys what you're looking at from the spec on the i5. It's pretty crazy. Again, this is Meteor Lake, so you're looking at 18 threads in total that's available to you. We can go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So 18 threads, right? So you're going to have a total of those 4 P cores, 8 E cores, and then you've got your low power efficient cores, right? And of course, you also have your hyperthermic support. So a total of 18 that you have there. High frequency with that modern IPC architecture, right? And then you also have, of course, the deep learning boost and the AI, the NPU that's going to be on there, which offers some very impressive performance for even real world application workloads. And it will actually continue to be enhanced and improved upon as we see more kind of API support for the NPU, right? That gets kind of put into place. So let me go ahead and drop that in the chat there. If anybody's interested, I'll also go ahead and quickly check to see if there might be any questions on there. Will the ROG Swift PG32UCDM be available in Best Buy, and if so, when? So, hey, actually can't confirm yet on 100% on the channel retailers. Make sure to keep it tuned, like I said, for the 16. We'll have confirmation regarding actually our channel availability partners. So channel availability is always a little bit variable depending on the products in terms of the logistic timeline. So sometimes a channel partner might not have immediate channel availability, but that might come in logistically a little bit later as they kind of skew in the product. So we might see that initially you might have availability from, let's say, you know, like Micro Center, the ASUS store, and Newegg, and then like in a month you might see Amazon depending on their logistic rollout. But we'll release essentially all our confirmed channel partners when we actually formally kind of kick off the launch for that on the 16th. So keep it tuned on that side, okay? When will we see the NUCs release? So right now we're getting ready to start pushing these out into the channel. The first launch we'll hear will be with the NUC 14 Pro, and then we'll be looking a little bit later as we move into the NUC the 14 Pro Plus, which we've talked about in the ROG NUC. These models we kind of showed off at CES, so more information to come in the not too distant future in that regard. I would expect probably us to look to kind of push more towards relative kind of channel availability as we're looking into the March timeframe. So again, this is a little bit of kind of an early update visibility on this information, so you've still got a bit more to go in terms of this. So just make sure to keep it tuned that if you have interest in here, again, we'll definitely put this out there, and you'll see more up-to-date information as we put out kind of our press release information and we work with media on reviews and things along those lines. Okay. Astral Sky is going, is ASUS moving away from IPS? Actually, no. As a whole, we have a huge array of IPS displays. We actually just made big updates. We had our Tough Gaming update lineup of displays, which we just released all in December or like late November, were all IPS. So we actually had a brand new 49-inch display that was IPS. We had a new 1920 by 1080 180 hertz Tough Gaming display, which is fast IPS, then 1440, which was IPS, then we had another 1440, which was IPS. We have upcoming XG series displays, which are going to be IPS, so we're going to continue to heavily utilize IPS. We also have VA-based solutions. We also have TN-based solutions, right? We also have, like I said, WOLED solutions from LG, and we have QD OLED solutions from Samsung. So ASUS is actively working with a wide array of partners. Our goal is always, as a display manufacturer, is to offer, I think, a choice and flexibility for the consumer based on the features, functions, and specifications and the budget that they're looking for, right? Okay, so overall, guys, I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to go ahead and touch on for this stream. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it open here if we've got any last questions. If not, we're pretty much going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up the stream. That covers our updates that we have for this week. As always, I thank you guys for joining us for the stream, allowing us to kind of catch you up on the latest and greatest from ASUS. Again, If you always want to find out about the latest and greatest, make sure to check out our weekly stream. It happens here on a weekly basis, whether you're going to be watching us on X, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or any one of those platforms. We also have it on demand, so you can check us there. And you can always make sure to join our PCDIY group for all of the latest and greatest updates as we put them out there as well. So thank you guys for joining the stream. Have a good Friday night. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy your weekends, and take care and take it easy, and best of luck with your builds. So as always, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we'll see if we can follow up there. If not, make sure to check us out in our PCDIY group. I'm going to lastly check to see if we got any other questions. Doesn't look like it. Everybody else letting us know. Have a great weekend. So take care. Take it easy. Bye-bye, guys.